collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up this week, Italy launches an online campaign to dissuade people in Africa from risking their lives to get to Europe.
Just to make aware the potential migrants that their dream to reach Europe could become actually a nightmare, incurring in the risk of sexual abuse, and the risk of dying at sea and of exploitation during their journey.
A new shelter for victims of domestic violence is inaugurated in Nicosia.
At the beginning we started having shelters, and we used to hire houses. But a house, 4 bedrooms, is the maximum we could find. No facilities, no nothing. So throughout the years we thought that we have to build one with all facilities for the people we host.
And women and gender issues are largely unrepresented in the Cyprus reunification negotiations.
We have a better chance of this peace process or the peace settlement actually working long term. Because when women have an input, when women are included, research has shown it has a better chance of sustainability.
The Italian government has launched an awareness campaign which aims to dissuade would-be migrants from travelling from Africa to Europe. We hear, of course, an awful lot about the migrants travelling across the Mediterranean to Greece. We hear less, perhaps, more recently, about all of those trying to cross from North Africa, and their aim is Italy. I think I'm right in saying that some 29,000 migrants are suspected to have drowned trying to make that very journey. The Italian ambassador to Nicosia is His Excellency Guido Cerboni. Guido, this is aimed very much, because it's a website, I think, in English, in French, and also in Arabic. It's aimed at sub-Saharan Africa, which is where the majority of migrants who manage to make it to Italy actually come from. So what is the Italian government hoping to achieve apart from cutting down the numbers? I've looked at the website. Some of the stories are obviously aimed at putting people off making the journey because of the dangers they face.
Exactly. What we think is important to inform, to reach these people, the potential migrants, and to make them aware of the risks, dangers that they might incur during their journey to Europe. And this can be done, I think, and we thought that it could be done by themselves, by the experience of other migrants. So that's why we collected the testimonies of these people, so speaking in their language with subtitles in English, French, Arabic, as you said, just to make aware the potential migrants that their dream to reach Europe could become actually a nightmare, incurring in the risk of sexual abuse, and the risk of dying at sea and of exploitation during their journey. So let's hope that this might deter them to start their journey.
Of course, one of the problems is the fact that the traffickers of these people can be very persuasive. They say there's a job waiting for you. They tell them all sorts of things, and desperate people will believe what they want to believe, won't they?
No, yes, of course. We cannot neglect that these people is escaping and trying to escape from a situation of famine, of war, exploitation, and so underdevelopment. So it's not easy, to convince them, because what they are living is always worst what they think is waiting for them.
And what is waiting for them in Italy? Because you've had vast numbers, particularly over the last few years. I'm not sure if you still have, do you, that naval presence in the Mediterranean that was part of a European programme, which a lot of people said, oh, well, that's just encouraging them. But it meant that you have got thousands now of migrants in Italy. Where are they in Italy, and are you being able to share them out among the European Union? How is the country coping?
Well, as you said, most of them is coming, in our case, from Africa, especially from countries like Nigeria, Eritrea, so the Horn of Africa, and the sub-Saharan countries. And they choose the central Mediterranean route, passing through Libya. So the situation in Libya now, of course, is in a way facilitating the work of these human being traffickers and these organized crime organizations. In Italy, yes, the numbers are relevant, despite the fact that many of these people would like to proceed for other countries, to go to other countries in Northern Europe, where often they have already relatives, especially in Northern Europe. And for us, yes, it's a challenge. We still have our Navy, our Coast Guard deeply engaged in saving the lives of these people, because in any case you cannot leave them die. So what should we do? We should close our eyes. This is impossible. And we take them on board, we bring them to Italy, and I must say that the people, yes, of course, we also have difficulties with populist parties, with demagogues, and it's not easy to accommodate all these people. But the mobilization of the local authorities, even the church, is giving a great contribution. Pope Francis has really done a great thing, inviting all the parish and scattered all over Italy, and there are many, to open their houses, their properties, their buildings to host these people.
And are the migrants who have arrived there being integrated? Because that's one of the most important things, isn't it?
Exactly.
If they stay outside of mainstream society, they can't contribute much to the country they're in. Whereas if they're integrated, they can help with labour, growth, and all the other good things that we tend not to hear from the populist demagogues you were talking about.
Exactly. What we are starting now, especially with the cooperation of the regions, of the municipalities, is to involve these people in social works. And so cleaning the roads, and other socially useful activities. So in order to also to involve them, to try to integrate them in the society. In southern Italy, even there are villages on the mountains that actually have taken advantage by the arrival of these migrants, because hosting these migrants, life has come back. There were small villages abandoned, maybe with many empty houses. And so with the arrival of these people, with their activities, some of them are craftsmen, and they started, life has come back again. We have some cases, particularly in Calabria, and in the Riace municipality, where this is working very well.
And I suppose in the aftermath of the recent earthquake, it could be that there's a labour force there that could help speed up the clearing up and the reconstruction.
Well, this is something to see. For the time being, you need also specialized people for this kind of work. The earthquake, and to recover, all the materials is something that has to be done by people that is technically prepared for this kind of a job. But nevertheless, the integration of these people is passing through, at least at the beginning, this kind of activities, social, useful activities, and this is also helpful to create a climate of confidence with the population, with the local populations.
Well, you can find out more if you go to the Aware Migrants website. There are some stories from about 80 or 90 migrants. There's also a Twitter channel and a Facebook page. Look out for www.awaremigrants.org. And we were talking to the Italian ambassador to Nicosia.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
The Association for the Prevention and Handling of Violence in the Family had a huge launch in Nicosia last week. Finally, after many years of work and a lot of sponsorship, they have built a shelter for people who need to escape from family violence. Known as Spavo, the president of the organisation is Kiki Boyaji. She joins us now. Kiki, congratulations. It's a fabulous house. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be able to build it, and then I'd like to know how it's going to work.
At the beginning, we started having shelters, and we used to hire houses. But a house, 4 bedrooms, is the maximum we could find. No facilities, no nothing. So throughout the years, we thought that we have to build one with all facilities for the people we host. So we started looking at the beginning to do timber houses or something, because we didn't have too much fund. Our funds were limited. But gradually, as you heard our director saying, he met the director of the Department of European Programs and Development, and she told him about the funds of Norway. So with their help, we applied to Norway, and we managed to get nearly 70% of the cost of the building was coming from the Norway.
Over 700,000 euros. I mean, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Of course, you cannot build this one with this money. So government help us, and then OPAP help us. And then we were worried about the furnishing and everything. And then IKEA came in, and they furnish everything, they equip it, they make really a lovely place. Everything, from the smallest thing till anything you see in the building comes from IKEA.
And so you've got now a brand new building, beautifully decorated, very cleverly thought out as well, but it's increased your capacity, I think, to be able to host families who need protection. Now, generally speaking, are we talking here about possibly a mother and 2 or 3 children? What's the sort of
the capacity
average that you get?
We have 7 bedrooms, and we can accommodate 7 mothers with 2 or 3 children in every room. And you understand that it's going to be a lot of people. We already have people on the list because we are closed for about 1 month because we were moving from one place to the other. And with the help with the Minister of Labour, she allotted us some funds, and we will have people here 24 hours a day. That's it. We are going to have shifts to cover or 24 hours, having people here with them to support them, to help them if an emergency comes, for anything.
And for security, because I was a little surprised when I heard about this quite big opening ceremony, that you seem to have abandoned what used many years ago to be your practice, and that was to keep the addresses of the shelters secret.
Yeah, this is what we were doing till now, but because of this new building, we thought it's about time. If people knows about it, no problem. We have alarm systems, we have cameras, we have a lot of things, and we are very near the police station. And this is another good point for us. And why should we penalize women, as the honorary president said when they went to Israel for the first time and they saw shelter? It looked like a jail. Everywhere there were rails. Of course, not to prevent the women go out, but to prevent someone else to go in. But it's not nice to give them this feeling that, they are in a prison or something.
And that doesn't, of course, help with the psychological issues that need to be dealt with.
Because it's as if you are telling them it's your fault. And we want them to have an open plan, of course, with the securities I mentioned before. And we want them to feel they have a nice surrounding, which is help their psychology, and also with the psychology support they get from our psychologists, they will be able to stand back on their feet and take their life on their hands.
That's the end result. How long do most women stay here?
Usually we say 8 to 10 weeks, but there were occasions we let them stay longer, much, much longer. I don't want to say how long, because they had nowhere to go. It was special cases. They had nowhere to go, they didn't know any English, they didn't know any Greek, they knew nothing, and they couldn't go anywhere. So we kept them for a long time.
All right, but generally speaking, it's 2 or 3 months maybe maximum.
Yes.
How do you help them to get back out into, if you like, normal life again? I mean, because it's a small place, Cyprus, so it's very easy for a violent partner to find you.
Yeah, it so happened that many times they find a place. Some of them may come and knock the door and they want to come in, they want to speak to the woman and all this. And we call the police.
Okay, here, but what I mean is when they leave here,
well, when they
do you keep in touch with them? What sort of support do they get once they've moved out of Spavo House?
We have the Spavo House, which consists of 2 parts. One part is the shelter, where we host the women. And on top, we have our offices. It's the counseling center also. We have 2 counseling rooms, and there, the people who live from the shelter, to continue their life, they can still come to our psychologists to get support.
But how easy is it for them to find, let's say, private rented accommodation? Can you help with that? I mean, what I'm saying is, how do we get them back into society and back into a job or whatever?
Okay. Some of them already have a job. Some of them do not have. I must admit that before the economic crisis, the welfare office was helping a lot these women. Now there are some more strict criteria, but where the case needs support from the welfare office, they come and they provide it.
And when they're here, how does it work? They have their room, you have a kitchen down there. Does each family buy its own supplies, provide its own food?
We provide the food, we provide them everything. Their shampoos, anything. They don't pay anything. Everything is free. What we ask them is to cook their own food. If there are 2 or 3, they can arrange between them. One day one will cook, the other day. But this is also good for their psychology. It will help them do something instead of sitting on a chair doing nothing. And this is what we do. We provide them everything.
And that's the inauguration of the brand new Spavo House in Nicosia, which will be a place of light, relaxation and refuge for families who are trying to escape domestic violence.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the 4th series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
The Cyprus peace negotiations have been for the last several weeks in an intensive phase, with President Nikos Anastasiades and Turkish Cypriot leader Mustafa Akinci talking on a very regular basis, with the hope of getting much further down the road to a solution. What will that solution entail? And indeed, what do women have to do with the final solution for Cyprus? Not a lot, it would appear. Joining us is Magda Zenon from the Cyprus Women's Lobby, who has for a long time been lobbying for a bigger say for women in the peace negotiations. Magda, we do have a team now, in theory, that are advising the negotiators with gender in mind. What have they achieved?
Well, I actually wouldn't know, because they are not speaking to us. They are not speaking to the women's CSOs. They have been banned from speaking to us, which to me does not bode well. Because for a solution to have me in mind, and when I talk about me as the collective women, they have to know what I want, or they have to know my concerns. And I'm getting the feeling that maybe the box has just been ticked of including women in the peace process, but there's no real connection, there's no real commitment for gender to be included in the peace process.
And when you say for gender to be included, what exactly do you mean?
Well, in 2000, they passed United Nations Security Resolution 1325, which for the first time acknowledged the fact that women experience conflict differently. They bring different experiences. When they get to the peace table, those experiences are forgotten, because no one that has experienced what they've experienced is there. We're talking about things like when there's a conflict, there's displacement. The men on the front line, the women usually then have a responsibility to look after the children and elderly. If there's displacement as in movement, they've got to find shelter, they've got to find water. And usually in the Cyprus context, it wasn't as dramatic as it is in some environments. Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan. There's lack of water, there's desert, there's guerrilla warfare, and these women are vulnerable. This experience is never taken to the table, nor is it taken into consideration that they have to be looked after once the conflict is over.
All right, but let's bring it back into the context of Cyprus, because we're fortunate. No desert, mostly plenty of water and shelter and so on. I mean, it's a non-conflict conflict, if you like.
It's a frozen conflict.
The fighting is over. The physical fighting is over. What do you want to see in the negotiations that would presumably, in your opinion, have a more lasting impact for over half the population who happen to be female?
Well, the one thing I would like to be included is the fact that equality does not mean equality between Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots only. And that's what 1325 envisions, that equality is a broader, it is all-inclusive of all the kinds of equalities that can exist. Economic equality, religious equality, economic standing equality, gender equality. So equality has got to be included as a principle.
So are you saying that we should have women on the team that are drawing up the proposed constitution for a federated Cyprus?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because what we need to bring in, and this is probably quite appropriate and relevant to the Cyprus situation, is the question of property. In Cyprus, the property is connected to the father of the house, or your citizenship is connected to where your father was born. It's only recently been brought to where your mother was born. All these need to be loosened. We don't need to be connected to people. I don't need to be connected to where my father was born. I need to be connected to where I belong.
But at the same time, I suppose that purely from a bureaucratic point of view, some of this information is relevant, is it not?
It's relevant. You've got to have the liberty of choosing and not just automatically being connected to people. Why, when I get married, do I need to be connected to my husband in terms of property, in terms of citizenship? In terms of where we reside, there has to be a choice. There has to be a loosening of this bundle of residency and citizenship That's one of the things that applies here.
All right, you've worked with the women's lobby here in Cyprus and with other gender organisations, I think, for many years. If you could input just a couple of things, apart from the unbundling you just mentioned, what else would you like to see as a priority for this sort of inclusion?
Well, I think access to healthcare is one of the things. I don't know if it's relevant in terms of the Constitution, but everyone, especially women, and women regardless of whether they're refugees or migrants or Turkish Cypriots or Greek Cypriots, we have to have access to healthcare, and we have to have a choice of what happens to our bodies.
Don't we have that now?
Abortion, we've got the church that's telling us we're murderesses.
So there are a lot of new things that you would like to see in the Constitution.
Yes, we've also need psychological support, because the one issue that wasn't dealt with and is coming up randomly is the issue of rape. The rapes that occurred during the events of 74 were never dealt with. The only thing that was changed at the time that admitted inadvertently that there was rape was that access to abortions was made available in the Greek Cypriot side if you were a victim of rape. Okay? That was the only admission that there was rape. Okay? But what happened to the people? Abortion is not just a surgical process, it's a psychological process. It's also the marginalization that comes with the society. So those are the things that need to be addressed. Lots of things happen during war. But also as people, we've got to have access to equal pay. Equal pay needs to be something that must be addressed immediately.
In theory, though, that we have a lot of these things in our Constitution, they just aren't implemented.
They're not implemented and they're not asked for. Because even we as women sometimes, because it's a small community, you think, what are the people going to say? You think, will the next person employ me if they know I'm a troublemaker? So it's a lot of things that are involved. It's a whole range of equalities we need. We need equality in the workspace. And we need women to be aware of the fact that they can ask for things. And we know nothing is given to you on the plate. You do sometimes have to pursue it.
Right, and we're not pursuing it in terms of the current situation, you think, with the negotiations for reunification.
Yes, we need to, despite the fact that there is a Gender Equality Technical Committee, despite the fact that there are one or two women at the negotiations in a supporting role, gender per se, from what I can see, because we have not been consulted, there hasn't been an interaction of what are the things that need to be addressed.
It's quite extraordinary. I mean, one wouldn't expect, since we know that there's a sort of blanket ban on disclosing at the moment what is being said in the negotiations, but one would have thought that consultations prior to meetings of the negotiators with all the stakeholders and the different groups,
Absolutely.
Even if it's not just the gender committee, maybe it's one of the other committees, but you would have thought that that was imperative if they're going to come up with something that people are likely to tick a yes for in a referendum.
Absolutely, and the one thing we also need to bear in mind is that in 2004, the biggest group of no voters were women. Women, if they don't know what they're getting, they look at security in a different perspective to men. Men look in security in terms of land, boundaries, armies, that type of thing. Women look at security in terms of human security. I want to be safe. I want to be able to walk in the streets at night. I want my family to be safe. I want a job. I want my children to go to school. So there's questions or the problems that bother them about, unless that is addressed, they will not vote yes. And we all know if that is addressed and women vote yes, we have a better chance of this peace process or the peace settlement actually working long term. Because when women have an input, when women are included, research has shown it has a better chance of sustainability.
Well, that's the negotiations, but I think you're actually doing something about this in late autumn?
Yes, we've actually, myself and Sofia Papastavro, a fellow activist and friend, have had enough. So we've taken it into our own hands to do a conference on 1325 and to do it in such a way that we want to involve women involved in the CSOs, okay? We bring in experts from New York, Brussels and Croatia and Istanbul to address and make women aware of what 1325, how it can benefit them, and why it needs to be in place, and how it's not the panacea for everything, but it's certainly a very strong starting point for us to be involved in the peace process, to have a better chance of its sorting itself out, and to actually have a better say in the future of all of us. Because women want a solution, and that's why when women are involved, we have a better chance of sustainability. I want a solution that will protect my children, okay? I'm not thinking of me, so I'm thinking of long term. Men are far more linear and monodimensional, and this is not a knock on men. It's just the way it works. And men are far more ego-orientated. Women want situations that are win-win. You and me will sort it out. You've got to win some, I've got to win some. No one loses. So the conference is called A Sustainable Path to 1325 to Peace in Cyprus. It's on the 3rd and the 4th of November. We will advertise it quite widely. And as I said, we will be having gender focal points from New York, Brussels, and Croatia, and Istanbul.
So that's something to look forward to. It's happening at the beginning of November, and I'm sure it'll be on Facebook and in the local press. Magda Zenon talking to us from the Cyprus Women's Lobby. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.